Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new British Tier 10 Premium Heavy Tank, the Nemesis MBT. Now as always, if you do like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe down below, as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the Nemesis MBT, what's it like? Well, to me, it's just a little bit meh. It's sort of alright, the gun's pretty okay, the armour on its troll, but not that reliable. The alpha at 420 is pretty nice, the penetration is pretty good, the shell velocity is pretty good, aim time's a bit meh, the mobility is pretty decent as well, and on the whole, there's nothing outstanding about the tank, and there's nothing that's exceptionally bad about the tank. It's just a very, very sort of, it's a tank, right? And to be honest, for 18,000 gold, which is what this tank costs, that is an extortionate amount of money. Do I think it's worth that? Well, I never think anything's worth that much gold, in reality. You always want to wait for discounts, but I think everything that this tank wants to do is done better by even tanks that you can get for free in the tech tree, like the FV4202, or the Chieftain. The Chieftain is the big one. You can get the Chieftain Mark 6, and that will do everything that this tank does, but just generally better than what this thing does, and I just feel like you could just go grind that for free, and you'll get the same experience, as opposed to having to pay out 18,000 gold, which is a hell of a lot of money. And yeah, I don't think it's really worth the bang for the buck in regards to that, but it's not horrific. Like I say, it's probably fairly balanced, if we're honest. And yeah, that is the Nemesis MBT. That's what I think of it. So, let's get into the statistics of the Nemesis main battle tank. So, this tank has a 50 km/h top speed, with a 16 km/h reverse speed, 650 horsepower, with a 16.21 horsepower per ton ratio. You do hit this 50 km/h top speed. This 50 kph top speed is quite damn nice, and you can play it more like a medium tank than you can a heavy tank, and that's probably the way you're going to want to play the Nemesis. And no, 50 kph is very much in line with something like what, let's say, like the FV4202 has. And it's 2 km/h faster than the Chieftain if you were to run the powertrain as well. And it hits its top speed, which is very nice. The 16 km/h reverse speed is also pretty good at going backwards, at getting out of dodge. You got 2.2k hit points, which is, again, pretty nice for a heavy tank. You can slug it out a little bit. You got 38 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which is pretty quick for a heavy tank. Again, it's very, very medium-esque, this tank. Very, very medium-esque. You've got 7.3 soft, 1.1 on firm, medium, sorry, and 1 on firm. Your camo, well, you don't really care about your camo because you're a heavy tank, so you have none. You've got 400 meters of view range, which is fantastic. Again, if you run optics and situational awareness, born leader, food, etc., you get that up to about 512 meters of view range, which is great, and you'll be able to get some good assistance for yourself. You've got 30 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which is slower than your hull rotation, so just bear that in mind, that your turret will not keep up with your tracks. If you're trying to aim the opposite way to where you're turning, your turret will turn away from that target, which is a bit of a pain. So that's why I try and make that better, but it's down to you and your personal preference. You got 0.68 accuracy during rotation, which is pretty damn good, actually, for this vehicle, and that means that this tank doesn't bloom out quite as much when you're turning the turret, which is, yeah, pretty good for the Nemesis. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of elevation. 10 degrees of gun depression is absolutely fantastic. It means you will be great on a ridgeline. It's where this thing wants to be. This thing really wants to be hull down, because it's that type of tank, and 10 degrees of gun depression really helps it in that regard. You've got a 9.8 second reload, which is a 2.5, nearly 2.6k DPM, which again, for 420 alpha, is pretty nice. You've got 0.38 base accuracy, which is getting onto the derpier end of gun handling, but you can get that down to a decent level with the crew skills and the like, such as that. You have 3.23 accuracy during movement, which isn't that good, which is where you want to be running something like the gun stabilizer, because it means that once you start going on the move, this gun does bloom out quite a lot, unless you have all the gun perks and the gun stabilizer, and then the gun doesn't bloom out quite as much. You got 2.5 second aim time, which again, you do feel, if you do not run a gun stabilizer, you will feel that 2.5 second aim time quite a lot, and it can be a little bit of a pain. You don't feel it as badly, though, if you do spec out to make the gun as good as possible. You have AP, APCR, and HE, with 254 penetration on the standard AP rounds, 310 penetration on the APCR rounds, and 90 penetration on the HE rounds, which is pretty nice. 90 penetration on the HE rounds is quite high for the HE rounds, which means that you can penetrate a lot of the artilleries really quite easily, and you'll also pen stuff like the Waffly 100 turret these days as well, which is again, very glorious. There's some lightly armoured tanks as well that you can pen in the lower plates and stuff with that as well, which is also quite funny. You got 420 damage with 530 on the HE. So the HE is about 110 damage more, which is quite useful. You got 1,375 meters a second shell velocity on the standard AP rounds, which is absolutely fantastic, especially for AP, and 1,420 meters a second shell velocity on the APCR, which means it does go faster than the standard AP, and you will feel that difference, but not that much different, right? The standard AP round is a fantastic shell velocity in of itself, and bear in mind that if you do load HE, they do tend to loop a little bit more than the standard AP and premium APCR, but 1,015 meters a second is still pretty good for a HE round, and as it is a tier 10 premium tank, you get no bonuses except for a little bit extra on tank and a little bit of a free XP bonus. So yeah, let's have a quick look at the modules for this tank, and as you can see, that's where the ammo racks are on this Nemesis. It is made of them. I haven't really felt the ammo racks that badly in this vehicle, but it is made of them. Like, it's quite surprising that in the 15 or so games I've played in this tank so far, that I've not really been ammo racked in it. But you see where these ammo racks are? They're behind the drive wheel, they're in the centre of the tank, in the back of the turret, on the left-hand side, well, the right-hand side, but if you were to be shooting at it from the back, the left-hand side. If you shoot it in any of these sort of zones, you will probably ammo rack the vehicle. There's also the engine block there, which means that if this thing gets shot in the back end of this tank, it will lose its engine. And it does lose its engine most times as soon as a shot enters the back of the tank, which is pain. Pain, pain, pain. But that's the same as most tanks, realistically. And let's have a quick look at where the crew are as well. And that's where the crew are for the Nemesis MBT. If someone shoots your cupola, your commander will die. So that is something you've got to be careful of. And speaking of the cupola, here is the armour model of the vehicle. And yeah, this is where it's a bit of a pain for the Nemesis, because the upper plate is, what, 95mm thick? And it's a pretty good angle, which means you can ricochet shots if you're wiggling and making it as difficult as possible. They will ricochet shots. As well as that, the sticky outy bit is quite well angled, which then also will bounce shots a little bit easier, even if it is a little bit better and it's a little bit less well angled than the upper plate. Because of these slight angles here, it will ricochet shots off this. That's what I say, you want to keep wiggling and moving and making it as difficult as possible, and therefore you won't be absolute Swiss cheese on the upper plate. You can go through the upper plate though if you are in a tier 10 most of the time. It's not the best upper plate in the universe. Lower plate is also pretty garbo, but that's just the way it is, right? It's 177 of thickness, and it's pretty well angled, but most tier 10s will just go straight through the lower plate. If you're in a tier 8 shooting at this thing at the lower plate, it might be a little bit more tricky. But the thing is with this tank is that you do have a very, very easy target to hit. You have this cupola, which is 63mm of thickness, and it is exceptionally easy to hit. Exceptionally easy. This is where the hull down strength of the Nemesis MBT completely falters, because it really does start to struggle when tanks are shooting the cupola every time. And yeah, 127mm of thickness on the front of the cupola right there, which yeah is pure pain, because it is massively, and this is where it's worse than the Chieftain in that regard, because that cupola just gets absolutely decimated, absolutely trashed by everything that shoots at it. And because it's so big and easy to hit, yeah, it will get penned all of the time, so you got to be very, very careful of that. If you're side scraping around on this side of the tank, you'll be all right because you can get this covered. But if you're side scraping on against a wall that is this side here, that cupola is very, very easy to hit. If you're going to shoot at this tank, shoot the cupola. It is so easy to take this tank down by shooting that cupola. I mean, if the tank's using the full width of its gun depression, it might be a bit more of a struggle to hit, but it's still going to get hit a lot of the time. In my experience, the cupola is a massive downer for this tank's hull down ability. Also, the 139mm of thickness on this part here, again, is damn well sloped. So if you're using your gun depression in the Nemesis MBT, it can be quite awkward to pen this spot here because it will ricochet, But if people are firing high pen premium rounds, which a lot of the tier 10s have, so 340 heat, etc., not even that, like 310, 320 penetration premium rounds at tier 10, they will also go through this section here if you're not at the full extent of your gun depression, which is exceptionally awkward for your tank. And in terms of side scraping, if we find the right spot here for the side armor, I'm pretty sure the side armor is also pretty damn nice for this vehicle, which means you can actually... It is actually really good at side scraping, because look at that. It's got 100mm of thickness on that side armor there, and look how angled that is. That, if you're side scraping properly, that will ricochet you a hell of a lot of rounds off the Nemesis MBT, and it does do very well at side scraping. But, naturally, you've got to be careful of that cupola on top, and that cupola is a massive weakness for the vehicle, to be perfectly honest. And it's a really, really big problem for the Nemesis MBT compared to the Chieftain, which has the same cupola, but nowhere near as pronounced as this Nemesis does. So what do I run in terms of a crew and equipment? Well, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanic, Rapid Aim, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Steady Aim. Because the gun isn't that accurate in general, without the help, I do help this tank out as much as possible in terms of the gun handling, so I can make the thing about this tank, which is nice, which is the fairly decent DPM and the 420 Alpha, make it hit with these gun handling perks. Rapid Aim, because I feel like the turret traverse is a little bit too slow for my liking on this vehicle, which is why I help it, but you don't have to run Rapid Aim if you feel like the turret traverse is fine for you. You could run something like Clutch Braking to make it turn even quicker, which would then accentuate the fact that the turret traverse is quite slow. Or you could run Off-Road Driving to help the ground resistances of this vehicle, really help it get to that top speed of 50 kph, but I do feel like it already hits it well enough as it is. Or you could take the armor angling to reduce the amount of damage coming in. There's plenty of ways you could set up this tank. It's down to you and how you feel comfortable in playing a vehicle. But that's just what I run. And this whole lot here is what you're going to take in general on every single tank in World War II. Track Mechanic, because I do get stuck in with this tank. I do play it more like a medium tank, but when I'm side scraping and stuff like that, you do tend to take hits in the tracks, and your tracks will get blown off. I like to be able to get my tracks back on a bit quicker. And then in terms of equipment in this Nemesis MBT, well, I do run the Advanced Loader, the Gun Stabilizer, and the Optics. Optics to be able to help myself spot for myself. There's lots of maps where I will have that really high view range and be able to get tons of spotting by being able to outspot the enemy tanks and then be able to get shots back at them and not just have that frustration of being spotted all the time and not being able to see what is shooting at me. The gun stabilizer, so that I can make this gun as good as possible, and like I say, because the accuracy during movement isn't that good on the tank, I really try and help it out as much as possible so the bloom isn't that big and I don't have to feel that 2.5 second aim time, and the advanced loader to make the DPM 10% better as always. If you feel like the gun handling is good enough for you, you could run the powertrain to get a little bit quicker. You get up to, I think it's 52.5 kilometers an hour with that powertrain in, and you get that little bit of extra boost to your engine power, and thus you'll hit your top speed a little bit easier because it makes your power to weight better. If you feel like the aim time is too bad for you, take the advanced gun lane drive, but to be honest, you want to be taking the gun stabilizer over the gun lane drive because the aim time really does feel even worse if you do not take the gun stabilizer. Or you could run vents instead of optics if you feel like the view range is good enough with vents and make everything about the tank nicer. You know, it's down to you and how you want to play the vehicle. It's always like that and how you feel comfortable with it. So let's have a quick look at the statistics of the Nemesis MBT with the fully kitted out tank. So we've got better ground resistances at 2.12, 1.01, 0.92. Our view range is now at 512 meters of view range, which is great. We've got a 36.49 degrees a second turret traverse now, which is still slower than the hull rotation, but it's getting there, right? That's why I run rapid aim myself. 0.46 accuracy during rotation is great. The 7.15 second reload, which is 3.5k DPM, which is quite nice for this vehicle. The 0.31 accuracy now down from that 0.38. 1.84 accuracy during movement now is a hell of a lot better than the 3.2 or 3.04, something like that, what it was before. Hell of a lot better, which means the gun doesn't bloom out near as much. You've also got the aim time down to 2.3 seconds as well because of the food and the Born Leader, which is a little bit nicer than the 2.5 seconds as well, which is definitely a nice thing for the Nemesis MBT. That's how I have it kitted out. That's the fully equipped stats. And yeah, so you got 3.5k DPM on this vehicle, 2.3 second aim time. You know, the accuracy during rotation is 0.46, the accuracy during movement is 1.84, 7.15. Look at the DPM at 3.5k. Let's go have a quick look at the Chieftain, which I say is its main competitor. It has better penetration across both rounds, realistically. It does not need to run the gun stabilizer, because without the gun stabilizer, the accuracy during movement is 1.32, and the accuracy during rotation is 0.72, which is worse than the Nemesis, but it doesn't really affect it too badly. The top speed is 48.3 with the powertrain. Worse power to weight ratio, so it doesn't hit the top speed quite as well as the Nemesis, but you do hit it. Same view range at 512. You've got nearly 4,000 DPM in this Chieftain, with that 270 pen on the standard and 326 on the premium. Your shell velocity is slightly worse though, or it's the same on the standard round, but worse on the premium round. But your aim time on this vehicle is also 1.38 seconds. 1.38 seconds here, look, which is fantastic, and a 0.26 accuracy as well at 100 meters is absolutely incredible. The Chieftain is an absolute beast of a tier 10 heavy tank, and it's free to grind in the tech tree. Which is why I say that you may as well just go get a Chieftain for free in the tech tree than buy the Nemesis MBT, because this tank is quite a lot worse than that vehicle. I mean, if you look at the Valor as well, which is fully kitted out here, the accuracy during rotation is worse, but the accuracy during movement is better. The aim time's better at 1.93. DPM is 300 or 200 worse, sorry, than the Nemesis, so that is something. And the penetration is better on the standard and slightly worse on the premium, is it? Oh no, it's better on the premium as well at 322. But you got 440 alpha, which means you do hit a little bit harder when it does sing. But you are slower with that 46 km/h top speed. But again, you do hit the 46 km/h top speed in the Valor. But yeah, that's the Nemesis MBT. That's the stats and a little look at its two competitors in the premium version and the standard tech tree version, the Chieftain. To me, it's very much like, in the way it plays and the way it's felt, it's like playing the Chieftain Proto at tier 9, but at tier 10, right? In the way it feels. It feels like it's a Chieftain, but just worse, right? That's the way it does feel. And for 18,000 gold, if we have a quick look in the store, do I think it's worth that 18,250 gold? No. I say I don't think anything's worth that much gold in this game, to be fair, and you always want to wait for discounts, but if you're paying for that much money for a tank, it's, you know, not anywhere near as good as the tank you can just get for free. So you may as well just get the tank for free, right? So as always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can watch this tank in action, see how it handles, and make your own mind up on it, what it looks like it plays. So as always, everybody, I'll see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Nemesis MBT, and this first game we are here on this map, which is Swamp. And on Swamp, what I'm going to do is take it to be more, again, like the medium tank-esque vehicle that it is, which, you know, 50 kph is pretty good for a heavy tank realistically, and it is very, very similar to the FE4202 in regards to the fact that it does have that 50 km/h top speed, and it will hit it. It's just a little bit more sluggish than an FE4202, for example, in hitting that top speed, but it does hit the top speed, which is nice. The gun handling on this 110mm gun, because it is a 110mm gun, not a 120, even though it's got 420 alpha, which is kind of odd, because it's a, you know, a 110mm gun that does more damage than a 120, but yeah, that's just a weird fact for you right there. And yeah, what we're going to do is use our good mobility on this vehicle to try and get in a position to cut off stuff like the UDES or the light tank. We put a shot out towards the UDES 1516, and it missed. So we're just leading the shot to see if we could hit it again, but sadly we don't get another shot at that UDES 1516. Naturally, when we shot at that guy, we shot the one spot where there was a ridgeline that blocked off his climb, and thus we ended up hitting it, because that's just the way that RNG is sometimes. You go, I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity to get a shot, and we shoot the ridgeline, because it's the one time that we could have not penned that guy. And unfortunately, once again, we shoot the UDES 1516, but we aimed for his side there so I could try and track and pen him. But then the shot just ended up slamming into the upper plate and ricocheting on the UDES 1516, because the upper plate on the UDES 1516 is a little bit awkward to pen. It is very, very, very sharply angled, and thus, naturally, you can get quite a few shots that will bounce. But we do get two satisfying shots there into the T100 LT and shut down that Soviet Tier 10 light tank and get him out of the game, which is always great. 737 damage so far. A bit of blocked because we did bounce that T100 LT, because, you know, we do have armor. This is one of those tanks that has all the angles, which is nice, and will help you ricochet shots, but not a lot of thickness that you want to truly rely on, say like the Chieftain does, which means that shots do have a habit of finding really awkward penetrations on you, which is it's kind of annoying. It's one of those tanks where you go, I've got armour, I can ricochet, but I just can't rely on it, which is really quite annoying, especially for a heavy tank, right? So we loaded the premium rounds there, the 310 penetration premium rounds, so that we could go through the cupola of the Tortoise, because at this distance with 254 penetration on the AP, it wasn't always a guarantee to go through his cupola, especially since we were firing at a good distance, and the penetration on the AP does drop off to 230 at that distance, which is a little bit awkward for penetrating the Tortoise's cupola, and that meant that, you know, having the 310 penetration APCR rounds, it was a lot better. Which we load HE now, by the way, for the M5355, so we can get that higher damage. 527, glorious. But yeah, incidentally, the one thing I didn't notice and I didn't say is that the penetration over distance on the AP rounds drops from 254 to 230, whereas on the APCR round, it drops from 310 to 292, which is a little bit odd, because it only drops 18mm of penetration on the APCR round, but on the AP round, it drops 24. Now, if you know your shell mechanics, that's the wrong way round. That's a really quite a weird one, but yeah, okay. Because usually APCR has a sharper drop-off over distance on its penetration, as opposed to AP. It's usually AP that has the better penetration over distance. And then, obviously, heat rounds don't lose any pen whatsoever, if you wanted to know about shell mechanics. But, yeah. Weirdly, you're shooting at distance in this vehicle with the AP, you're actually doing yourself a disservice as opposed to firing the APCR, because the penetration drop-off is nowhere near as big. But there you go. So, we've managed to get a couple of shots into the artillery. He's gone. We're trying to get the shot into track and pen the E100, but to be honest, that sort of angle, we were never tracking and penning the E100. Thankfully, he only penned us for 500. He doesn't have the big gun. That tells us that we know we don't have the big gun. We see the Progetto, just looking for the awkward shot into him. I really kind of wanted to get rid of that guy, but okay, you know what? I'm just going to ignore him, because I think, well, if he pokes around, one of my friends is going to kill him. But sadly, he pokes around, gets 2 shots into us, and no one shoots him. And thus we're just going to ignore him again, because I thought, well, let's get rid of this AMX-30. And we ricochet on the upper plate of the AMX-30 again! RNG, really. We actually bounced the E3 because he hits our upper plate at a very sharp angle. Again, the angling saved us there to block some damage. Again, it's not it's not like CDC Swiss cheese, right? In terms of the upper plate. The upper plate isn't very thick, and if it's flat on, they will probably go through it. This E3 would go through the upper plate most times. But because we were at that really sharp angle, we ricocheted the shot off the upper plate, which is where it feels like a bit more of a heavy tank, which is nice. We have loaded the 310 penetration APCR rounds to go through the lower plate of the E3, because sadly for the E3, if tier 10s and 9s fire a premium, they will just decimate the poor thing's armour. And we've managed to do a lot of damage. But we know now that he's not fired, so I don't really want to poke round and take the shot. We try and go for the lower plate of the E100, and we miss. Now the E3's fired, which means that we can just poke round and go, well, Mr. E3, good night, sir, and get rid of that tier 10 American tank destroyer. We're up to 3.8k damage, just angling to make it as difficult as possible for that E100 to pen us, but he doesn't get the chance to shoot us. The Cent Axe is heading towards our base, so I decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to go after the Centurion Action 10. I'm not going to go for the heavy tank behind me, which is a Nemesis MBT, but I'm just like, you know what, that guy's probably going to die to my teammates charging in. I'm going to see if I can get back to get rid of him, but naturally, we don't get anywhere near that Centurion Action 10, and he gets shut down by the 50B. But we did finish the game with a pretty decent total for that Nemesis there. We finished the epic victory, 2 kills, 3.8k damage, 1,603 assistance, the 3rd class, second on the team there in this vehicle, and a pretty average game there realistically for the Nemesis MBT. Again, showed off where the armour can work, which is quite nice. The gun handling on this tank sometimes feels a little bit derpy and just gives you the middle finger, which is quite annoying. Like the 2 shots on that AMX-30. The second one was a bit more chancy, but the first one especially, it was like, well, it's an AMX-30, it's got like no armour whatsoever. Ricochet. What? Excuse me? And then, you know, maybe the gun handling as well on the UDES 1516 as well. But you saw that it's not incapable of bouncing stuff. It can ricochet shots. It's just annoyingly inconsistent, this tank's armour. That's the way it is. And you're going to see that again in this replay, especially for the hull down capacity of the vehicle. So we're on Ghost Town. And on Ghost Town, I have come to the cross here at F4, because this position at F4 is a good position to take, because you can shoot across the people that might cross the JK line, and you can also shoot people that try and go hull down here where the Centauro is. But that Centauro is in the perfect place for me to not be able to penetrate him, because it can just see his turret but not his hull. So we've got to be very, very careful of trying to shoot that guy, and naturally, because I'm in the Nemesis, the cupola is very sticky outy. It's the first thing that everybody's going to see when you poke over the ridgeline. I don't want to just sit there in front of that Centauro and go, shoot me, because naturally he will hit the cupola, and it will be a very, very sad time. The 50 TP next to me is not hit that Centauro. I'm looking at the Centauro going, there's no point just sitting here. We're not going to be able to get any shots into him. Let's go help this 5120 out and see if we can get some shots in at the people crossing the JK. Maybe that's Sheridan, or maybe the Kampfpanzer that's down below as well. So we go for the lower plate shot on the Kampfpanzer, go straight in, and then we get shot by a medium tank that is on that K line, which is the Leopard 1. He did get a shot into us. We're just going to wait for that Leopard 1 to potentially give us a shot, which he does, so we put the shot straight through his side. But now we have to back out. We have to back out. We cannot stay there because we're just going to die. They can push up quite aggressively and they will start shooting us. If the tanks at F5, 6 decide to push up as well, they will also go through us and that won't be a good time. The Kampfpanzer 50T overexposed his lower plate, so we put the shot straight through, and thankfully he missed us with his heat shell, which, you know, on the Kampfpanzer 50T, the premium penetration on that tank is pretty good, because it does have on its premium round a 310mm of penetration, the same as this tank does, so we've got to be very, very careful about where he's shooting our turret, because naturally, even with his standard rounds, he can go through our cupola easily anyway. But if the section next to the cupola is too overexposed, he will probably go through that as well, which is quite awkward. So we get a shot into the SU-122-54 there. We're going to side scrape off, put a shot through his lower plate, which damages his ammo rack. He's pulling back, and we don't quite manage to get another shot in. I'm thinking of pressuring this SU-122-54 and the Leopard, but then the Skoda gets spotted pushing towards our Death Star. Naturally, they do not want to push into our Death Star because, well, one of them pushes in, they're going to die. I don't want to push them because if they decide to see, oh, Nemesis MBT, and just decide to push me on that corner, we're going to die very, very quickly because 3 tanks will just rush me and it'll be over. So we're going to go back to this position here and go hull down. So we see the Kampfpanzer 50T up at the ridgeline, put the shot through his lower plate. The Chieftain, not Chieftain, the Chisel, sorry, managed to get a shot through our side there, I think, or maybe I'm not quite sure where his shot is there. But the Chisel is looking for shots at us, which is kind of awkward. This is where if we were in a Chieftain or even the Valor, right, the T95 FV4201, or a Conqueror, or a Super Conqueror, etc., etc., we'd be a lot better off than we are in the Nemesis. Even in an FV4202, I'd say we'd be a lot better off than we are in a Nemesis. Because every time we're poking over in this Nemesis, we're exposing that cupola. The first thing that they are seeing is our cupola, which gives them free shots, gives them easy shots, and thus we lose hit points. So the Kampfpanzer 50T puts a shot straight through our cupola there. I mean, it's kind of more like the side of the turret, but it does hit our cupola. We've loaded HE because this guy's side scraping, but he's only got 137 hit points, and with our HE at 530, we should have been able to splash the Chisel to death and get rid of him, and we do. The Kampfpanzer 50T put a shot straight through our cupola, and once again, he shoots us straight through the turret front, and he actually penned us in that flat section there next to the cupola. So there's no point poking over to try and shoot that Kampfpanzer anymore. I did just shoot for his little viewport, because the Kampfpanzer on the left-hand side of the turret does have a little light, it looks like, but it's a viewport. And if you shoot that on the left-hand side, you can actually go through that with about 250, 260 pen. So I wanted to just chance it, and I thought, well, maybe he'll ricochet off my turret, but no, he just hit the angled bit and penned it anyway with 310 pen heat, which is where I'm saying that the armor on this tank is just a little bit inconsistent. It's not like you just don't feel like you can truly rely on it, because you think, aha, I should ricochet. No, pen. Oh. And then at times where you feel like you're not going to ricochet and you're going to get penned, yeah, they just ricochet like the E3 did, and you go, oh, okay, whatever. So this 705A did fire at our Foch, which meant I was very confident in my ability to get 1 or 2 shots into him, and we did manage to shut him down. There's still a light tank around this corner, and in fact, there's 2 light tanks. The Sheridan gets shut down. There's still a wheelie boy who is in a very awkward position. He is never escaping that. Trapped between a rock and a Sheridan. Yes, that's a place to be. And he gets shut down by the E4, meaning there's only 2 tanks left on the enemy team. It is the Centauro and the artillery. And we've now got to go chase this guy down. We've only got 89 hit points, though, which is a little bit awkward. We obviously don't want to take another hit from that Centauro because he will kill us. And the artillery is spotted currently being chased down by the light tank. But he ends up being killed by the Death Star, that Centauro, which means we don't get anywhere near it. And the artillery gets shut down by the Tusk. And we finish the game with a really decent total again for the Nemesis MBT there on Ghost Town. We finish with the victory. 2 kills, 4.4k damage, 402 assistance with the third class and the 1298 base XP. A fairly decent game there for the Nemesis once again. And I hope that really showed off some of the inconsistencies of this tank, where the gun's pretty nice, the DPM's pretty decent, but the armour just decides when and where it wants to work. And that cupola on a ridgeline, especially when you're poking it, is so much more harder to use in terms of this tank than, say, something like the Chieftain or the Super Conqueror or the Valor, you know, because they, even though, like I say, the Chieftain has a cupola, fairly similar to this thing, the Chieftain's cupola is a lot harder to hit than this tank's is. This tank's cupola is very sticky outy, and it's pretty damn easy to hit for the enemy tanks, especially when you're just poking over the ridgelines like we were there on Ghost Town, because it's the first thing they see, and you're not the quickest thing in the universe going up a ridgeline, so it's a fairly slow and easy target for them to hit. So we're on to the third replay, and the third replay we are here on Heilbronn, and on Heilbronn what we're going to do is we are going to the position at F67. This position here at F67, fighting on the ridgelines at F34 and F67 is a very, very good play on Heilbronn, because you can cut off a lot of the enemy team pushes down the HJK line on either side, which is nice. You can get free shots, and you can go hull down and fight on these ridge lines. It always seems to be that not many people actually come to this position here, for example, that the Nemesis is in. And a lot of people just tend to go sit at C9, which is pain on Heilbronn, because then even at C9, you don't really get much cover in this position. If you do have enough TDs back there, if people do push you, like that Leopard one decided to push me on top of this ridge line, I would have cover and I'd be able to get assistance and stuff like that, but if you have too many people just YOLO over, which happens quite often, to be fair, if people just YOLO over this ridgeline and into the dip where you are, it can be very, very awkward. So if you don't have the support, it's a very awkward spot to take. But it's a very, very strong position to have on this map, because again, you can just cut off their sniper spots, you can cut off their pushes down each line, and it can be pretty awkward for the enemy team to deal with. So we've got a shot into the Leopard at first, and now we were hoping to cut off again and try and get some shots into the side at the people at F5. This Teeth Breaker ends up driving into the perfect place for us to get 2 shots in. I was quite confident in pushing over to this position because I did pop 2 blind shots at that TD location that you saw me shoot twice at, and I didn't hit anything. And I also didn't get spotted doing it, which made me think there's nothing up there. So I've decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to be a bit aggressive. We get a shot snapped into the Leopard 1 there, which is, again, the fantastic shell velocity of this vehicle. Really helps the shells hit the targets at a decent distance. You really don't have to lead it that much. And we're up to 1710 damage. Just looking for shots at the Teeth Breaker, but he's not poking out at this current moment in time. We're just looking to see if we can get a shot at the Leopard, but he's hull down, so I couldn't quite shoot his hull, but I could shoot his turret. The Teeth Breaker's now running round in front of us. I was just hoping to maybe catch a shot into that Teeth Breaker, because I didn't really want him to get behind me, but he ends up getting away with it anyway. We see the Waffle Panzer IV. It's like, hello, Mr. Waffle. Get a shot through his upper plate. He misses, and that looked like Hey-Chi. And I was like, that looked like Hey-Chi, Mr. Waffle. Okay, I'll remember that. I'll remember that. Maybe he just had Hey-Chi loaded by accident, or maybe he's just firing full Hey-Chi, sorry. Who knows? He has got the big gun, though, so it's something you've got to be very, very careful of, because if he is loading AP or heat, he will go through us quite easily, and it's going to hurt. So we tried to get a shot snapped into the Leopard 1, but it didn't work. So what I want to do is change the angle. And rather than just drive up, what I'm going to do is take it a bit smarter, drive behind this rock so it's a lot harder for them to get shots into my side, and then push up to this ridgeline over here, so that again I can get shots at people like the Teeth Breaker, but I can also then sneak up on the Waffle Panzer IV and the Leopard 1 as well, and get hull down and safe. Sadly, we do get smashed by artillery, which killed our loader, I think, and our commander, with a little bit of damage. Really didn't do much damage to us in general. It took us, what, 600 damage, but we just lost a load of crew. We get shot into the back of the Teeth Breaker, because I did spot the Waffle Panzer IV, but I thought, he's never going to charge after me, and I've really be nice to get rid of this light tank. Put the shot in, shut down the Teeth Breaker. Now the Waffle Panzer IV comes for us. It's like, hello, sir, don't pen me. Oh, you are firing Hey-Chi still. Well, okay then, Mr. Waffle Panzer IV. I will just get rid of you then, my son. And we, unfortunately, don't quite get the shot in to shut down the Waffle Panzer IV because the Object 430 version 2 manages to finish him off. We're up to 3.5k damage with 675 assistance, and I think, right, okay, the Leopard 1's probably pulled back. So what we're going to do is move forwards again to see if we can get to the next ridge line and spot the Leopard 1 or find their artillery. We end up finding the Leopard 1, get a nice shot moved on the move into that Leopard 1 there, and we find the Piggy. Hello, Mr. T92, and this is where you're still off feeling that 2.3 second aim time, because you can see when we are waiting for it to aim in, it does feel like it takes a little bit of time. But because you've knocked the gun bloom down so much by making the accuracy during movement and rotation better, you're seeing the aim circle doesn't have that far to go for the 2.3 second aim time to actually get in. So that's why having stuff like run and gun, having stuff like the gun stabilizer is a really, really strong, effective tool for a tank like this, because it does have fairly long aim time, and being able to just do that is really, really good. And I mean, if we didn't have the gun stabilizer there, the likelihood of hitting that Leopard 1 was probably fairly slim, because that aim circle would have been a hell of a lot larger. But that's just accuracy in general, really, even since 6.0, is that most tanks can do that sort of thing anyway. So, there's 3 tanks left on the enemy team. There's the 705A in the town, the Centurion 71 at D4, and artillery. And I was thinking, oh, maybe the artillery's seen me coming. He's going to be running away, screaming like a little piggy. Or squealing, really. Squealing like a little piggy. And he's still firing from behind that rock. So it's like, oh, Mr. Piggy, don't mind if I do get my bacon. We've loaded HE with the 90 HE pen. I'm like, right, okay, this is going to be more damage. But we're a pleb. As by the clan tag, right? We're a pleb, and we shoot too low, which means that the HE didn't pen and hit his spaced armour, but we do get a second shell through the turret of the Batchat 15558, and our Batchat 15558 finishes him off. There's only 1 tank left on the enemy team. It is the 705A, but he is starting to have quite a few tanks come after him, which means the likelihood of us getting after that 705A is very, very unlikely. He gets a shot into our medium tank. He's only on 177 hit points, but I'm fully expecting that guy to die before we get anywhere near him. And the 277 does finish off that Soviet Tier 10 heavy tank. And finish the game with the victory. 2 kills, 5.9k damage, 1331 assistance. The second class with the 1464 basic experience. Again, a pretty good game there for the Nemesis MBT on Heilbronn. And we're on to the 4th and final replay of this video. Well played if you are here. And we are on Fisherman's Bay. And on Fisherman's Bay, we're going to go to the position at E6, because from E6, again, we can shoot the people that cross the JK line, the 789 line, as they go into the town. It gives us free shots. We can also try and cut off the people that try and shoot our guys going into the town at F6 if they don't have enough TDs sat at the back. So we try and get a shot at the T100LT. Poor shot there, realistically. We ended up aiming a little bit too low and hitting the floor, which was poor. But that was me going, oh, I should be able to find him, and then finding the one spot of dirt where I couldn't quite hit the 200LT, and I just rushed the shot and missed it. Bad play by me. It is what it is. So we've got a nice shot there into the Minotaur. I'm going for the drive wheel here of the Ragnarok. And the gun decided, no. I'm not going to hit the drive wheel. I'm going to hit the upper plate and ricochet. It's like, thanks, gun. Great of you. But we do get the shot into the IS-3 Auto. And these kinds of shots is where the Nemesis MBT is quite nice, because having that 420 Alpha as opposed to like the 400, 390, etc. is really quite good for those one-off shots, because they're having that slightly higher Alpha means you do slightly roll higher, and that means that, you know, you're always doing more damage than you probably would be in the 400 Alpha tanks. That's why the Valor is quite nice with the 440, even though it's not got the best DPM in the universe, because on those one-off shots, you are doing a little bit more damage. It's why, like, the QL is better than the 5A, for example, because you've got basically the same DPM, near enough, but 560 Alpha over 490, which means that on the odd occasional shot extra that you get, you're doing more damage, and you might not have had the opportunity to use the full extent of your DPM, for example. So we get a shot into that machine as he was crossing. I was really hoping to get a shot into the machine and track it, but it didn't work. We get a shot into the Type 59-2, and the T-44 manages to drive around and shoot us with the 122 that he's got, and I'm keeping this building in between me and that machine as I back up, because now I cannot push that T-44 or that Type 59-2 or the Ragnarok that was around that corner or the 50B. I can't push those guys and get free shots because that machine has dropped back into that position where he took on that ridgeline, because from that ridgeline he will be able to quite safely put multiple clips into me if he wanted to, which means it's just an untenable position. So we've pulled back to the safer position where we can possibly get shots at guys like the T-44 and the 50B, and we are getting those shots in. We're up to 3.6k damage, 751 assistance. The T-44 drives back out in front of our gun, and we get rid of him. We're hoping for the reload to get the 53-55, but he gets shut down. The Ragnarok stopped paying attention to us, so we put a shot through his side, putting him on 480 hit points. And I'm like, okay, this guy might bounce. No, he pens as one, bounces his second, and maybe he's got a third, I'm not sure, but I'm just waiting on my DPM. And once we get the reload in, we're going to poke round and try and shut him down. But if we just waited a split second longer there, we'd have been able to get rid of that Ragnarok. Because what we did is basically we drove around the corner a split second too early before we reloaded, which meant that that Ragnarok got the chance to actually get a shot at us and pull back before the shell went into the gun, and thus we managed to get the shot into him. If we just waited until we were fully loaded there, we'd have been fine, but we just preempted it. So we try and get a shot at the T-92, and just the same as that shot that went towards the 50B, it decided, no, you know what, I'm going to just hit some indestructible cover and disappear. We try and get a shot into the T-92, and once again, we end up shooting at the exact moment it gets slightly behind something that would take the shot. If we just shot a little bit higher, because it was poor aim, we'd have actually got the shot into the T-92 there. But we've got a little nice bit of a free farm on the back of these guys as they are getting now outflanked. So we put the shot into the side of the Type 59-2 as he attacks our medium tank. Just looking for shots into the T-92, which we managed to just about get one in for 410. Don't really want to be firing HE because I still have the opportunity to shoot the 50B. And plus we are shooting at the back of the T-92, which has like a little shovel on it, which is a little bit awkward to penetrate. So we're just looking for the shot into the side of the machine, but we can't quite get that. And with 110mm caliber gun, we should be able to go through the side of the machine with an overmatch because it only has 30mm of armor, and naturally you only need a 91mm caliber gun to go through that most angles. And we're just trying to use the mobility of the Nemesis MBT at 50 kph to get towards this machine and hopefully get another shot in, but sadly he gets shut down by the Ruthless, and we finished the game with a pretty nice total there for the Nemesis MBT. We finished with the epic victory, 6.1k damage, 812 assistance, the Confederate, the high caliber, the second class, for the 1387 base XP. A pretty damn nice game there again for the Nemesis MBT. We probably could have had a bit more damage in that game if we just aimed a little bit better, but it is what it is, and that's the Nemesis MBT. It's a pretty expensive tank at 18k gold. You could quite easily get the Chieftain for free in the tech tree, if we're honest, and you'll have probably a better experience than you will do in this Nemesis MBT, which is good, because the tech tree should always be on par or better than the premiums. And yeah, so that's it from me. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you next time.
A great success.